Please welcome to the stage Tim Miller and Governor Jared Polis.
What's up, man? Thank you, buddy. What's happening, everybody? As much as I like Heath's intro, I told him next year I want pyrotechnics, like CPAC. That's the only thing we'll steal from them, you know? Just something with a little bit of, get a little heat, get us going in the morning. How you doing, Governor? Good to see you again.
I was told there'd be pyrotechnics. I'm a little disappointed,
Okay,
frankly.
well, this is your first one. Next year, we're going to make this happen. It's my home state, Governor. Not anymore. I'm in Louisiana now. I'd like to trade him for Jeff Landry, but I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. Unless you're interested. Are you interested in moving to Louisiana?
You know, we're interested in welcoming you back to Colorado.
Okay, you're going to get me in trouble with my mother. All right. I gave you some homework before we got here, because I believe you're the only elected Democrat here. Is that right? Was there any other elected Democrats? We had some candidates, maybe?
Sadly, there's not as many elected Democrats these
anymore?
days.
Yeah, okay. It's hard to choose from. So I think you're the only one here. And so the homework I gave you was to look at Heath's 15 principles, or maybe there are 16, we don't know, and see, you know, kind of where you think our alignment is. Where are we starting?
Well, first, I mean...
and you did your homework. You got it here.
Well, I had. Well, that's part of the problem. There's too many of them, and you guys got to edit it a little bit.
Cut them down a little?
By the way, how great it would be if the folks here were the governing coalition of our country, and how proud we would be as a nation to create prosperity and peace in the world.
Would be nice.
Someday, you'll be back.
We could argue about a couple things, you know.
There's 15 or 16
reform.
of them. So that was, we need EPA reform, my goodness. So EPA, did you say?
We might be on the same page.
And NEPA. We need NEPA reform, too. I mean, these are things where we hope the Trump administration gets it right.
We'll get to that.
We will. So there's too many, and they're all good. They're all wonderful. I look through them. I mean, and we can go through them, but integrity, character, and virtue matter. That might be sort of a sad wish as opposed to kind of a value, because to the voters they don't. Now, this is important because this is a value. Every person has dignity, equality, and worth.
Yes.
Truth is important. I think you can combine that with no one's entitled to their own facts. So, I mean, look, somehow Martin Luther did 95 theses, but generally speaking, in marketing and in politics, you got to get it to 3 or 4 to kind of resonate, you know, and I think there's ways to kind of, without sacrificing the value piece, kind of get this down to the 3 or 4 that you can put on a little card and you can put on a sign and that can mean something to people. But I'm excited by them all. You know, free and functioning markets deliver prosperity. I mean, absolutely. And I think that's been forgotten. I just heard the tail end of the last discussion, the danger of the tariffs and taxes on shutting down transactions between two people who are inherently better off because they make a transaction would be devastating not only to the global economy, but right here at home in our backyard.
Yeah, and we also have a lot of policy overlap, you know, us exiled Republicans and you know, free markets, free people. Let's talk a little bit about what you've been doing in Colorado before. We might have to argue a little bit about politics, but our agreement is more about policy. And you've done, regulatory reforms. You did the chainsaw before it was cool, I think, and cutting some red tape, or before it was not cool, I guess, would maybe be a better way to put it.
We got rid of 208 old executive orders. Now, so I had been working on this. By the way, you know, the proper way is you work on things and you plan them. You don't just go by the seat of your pants. So it took us about 6 months to figure out, you know, we were going to repeal these 208 orders. And then, unfortunately, because of the timing, it was after the election, people, you know, then thought somehow we got the idea from Doge, but I say, no, they got the idea from us. Okay. We started earlier. But yeah, as an executive, I got rid of executive orders dated back to 1920 that were still in effect in our state, vast majority over the last 10, 20 years. So that was exciting. And I've challenged our legislature to do the same, to go through our rules, because, again, unlike certain other executives, I don't think I have the power to single-handedly nullify laws. So I challenged our legislature to go back and look at all of the laws that require different rules, because sometimes an executive is required by a law to do rules, and go back and eliminate some of that as well. Yeah, and as Heath mentioned, we're like building houses. That's exciting, you know? Yeah, we're doing market-based reform. It's like get government out of the way. You know, the market and the price of housing is a function of supply and demand. The fact that demand is high in Colorado is wonderful. People want to live there. You want to live there. It's great. You all move out there. But we have artificial government-imposed constraints on supply. That is a single reason why a home would cost a lot more than its replacement value, which they do. In average home price in Denver is about $600,000, which is high. I mean, it's not California high, but it's high. And so we have basically allowed more housing to be built, whether it's townhomes, whether it's multifamily housing, the kinds of inherently more affordable housing, which ironically is often the most difficult kind of housing to get past your local planning board. The single-family homes they let you build, but the more affordable kinds of homes are actually harder to approve. So we've made a lot of progress in that. We continue that work.
Yeah. You cut taxes?
We did. When
I'm just trying to warm up all the conservatives.
When I became governor, our income tax rate was 4.63%. We cut it at the ballot box to 4.5. We cut it at the ballot box to 4.4, and then we cut it through the legislature to 4.25%. So that's our income tax now.
Okay, and you're not needlessly mean to transgender people or rejecting people from coming to your state?
No, this is where we say, I like this. It's what every person has dignity, quality, and worth. That needs to stay there. I mean, we value everybody based on the content of their character, their contributions, and who they are. And there's good and bad people of all kinds.
You were, there's no doubt about that. There's some bad gays out there, not on this stage, but they exist. I could think of a couple. Speaking of that, you were in the room yesterday with, was it yesterday or 2 days ago now, where the governor of Maine, your colleague, was kind of getting into it with the president, Janet Mills. What'd you think? What'd you make of that exchange?
Well, none of us had the context going in, because this was until it was elevated by the president and the governor, it was an obscure thing going on with Maine. So we didn't really know what was going on at the time. But apparently it has to do with following the guidance around women's sports. And I mean, women's sports are, obviously something like in any sports, we want to prevent cheating. I mean, everybody wants to prevent cheating in sports, and of course, steroids, hormones, they can all be used for cheating, and that has no place in sports. And of course, at the same time, we want people to be able to participate. It's a little bit, so, we have discussions at our dinner table. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son, and we were talking about this. Where's the line, and how do you make sure that you don't have boys sort of cheating to play in girls' sports? And my daughter said, I don't understand. We beat the boys.
Yeah.
And she did. They had a basketball, it was a girls' basketball team, and they beat the boys' basketball team.
Yeah, no, my daughter beat her boy cousin in Colorado in basketball, and that caused a meltdown over Christmas. So we're not going to talk about it. Hopefully Louie's not listening. The other thing is just, I think, the capriciousness, regardless of what you think about, where the line is on when it comes to youth sports and gender, the capriciousness of how Trump is acting, right, about all this stuff.
Right. I mean, you just discuss it in a rational way. Of course, boys shouldn't be in girls' sports. I mean, it's obvious.
And it has nothing to do with cutting Medicaid funding from people in Lewiston.
Right. And it has nothing to do with people who were, born of indeterminate or intermediate genders and where they play. I mean, you want fairness in sports, but you want participation in sports. But it's kind of, and I think those are broad American values. You want fairness, and you want to provide ways people can participate. But yeah, very little of that has anything to do with the cost of living and the real issues that matter. I mean, I think after talking to Janet Mills, she said there's one kid this even affects in their whole state.
Yeah. Did you get any other? I'm curious if you got any clarity.
Obviously, on a human level, we got to feel bad for that kid that they're in the center of all this stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy.
my goodness,
So you were behind the scenes. You had to have dinner with Donald Trump last night. I was at the gay bar, so you guys can decide who had a more enjoyable evening. But I'm just did you get any clarity from the White House on the kind of random government workers that are being fired in your state, whether you're going to have any funding for
There's
Medicaid?
no clarity from this. In my limited time, what I talked about, and I know you came off a conversation of tariffs, like you, I believe in free trade and open markets, and trade is inherently good.
You can see why he's my favorite Democrat there. We got one clap here, one clapper, me and Jared are the only ones left.
But my concern was, and obviously we all, we're hopeful that's the president somehow has this master negotiating strategy. We're going to wind up with left tariffs rather than more. But, I'm not holding my breath. But I did say, look, I mean, if there's less tariffs, I'll be the first to praise that. But I said, whatever is happening here, please try to wrap this up in the next few months because investment is frozen. Nobody can plan. The uncertainty is the enemy of prosperity and in the business. So we're at whatever level we're going to wind up at, we've got to figure this out for your own benefit, Mr. President, in the next few months. Because if this goes on for 4 years, the uncertainty alone will cause a recession.
Yeah. We're not rooting for a recession, right? No.
No. As I said, I hope that somehow if we come out of this with, I'm not holding my breath, but less tariffs, less restrictions on trade. That would be wonderful.
I was just speaking for myself. I know you're good, Jared. I'm the devil on your shoulder. What about the other uncertainty with regards to the cuts? I know you had some controversy in your state about, I guess, forest rangers got fired. And who the hell knows? There are government workers that are in every state. Like, did you get any conversations about that?
As far as we can tell, there's no rhyme or reason to the cuts. Now, obviously, we want things that are wasteful to be cut. But an example of this sort of wrecking ball approach was they actually laid off a lot of the folks involved with fire prevention, park management in Colorado, which are incredibly important. So not the firefighters themselves, but the road maintenance, how you get to fires to fight them, forest management. So these are folks that are, in our view, and I think the view of any rational government on the left or right, small government, big government, I mean, this is like a core function thing, right? Yeah. So we hope that they reverse that. No idea if they will.
Yeah, I saw a tweet as I was coming in, a rare good one, from Jessica Riedel, who's a friend of the principal's first, and she wrote this: if Mitch Daniels was running Doge, I think we could replace his name with yours here. If Jared Polis was running Doge, they'd have already begun implementing GAO recs to fix the billions in payment errors, consolidating duplicative programs, auditing thousands of programs for efficiencies, legally, competently, and with minimal disruption. That's real money. That's not what they're doing.
That's right. For every government program, you should ask really two questions. First is, should we even be doing this? And there's absolutely things that are being done that are counterproductive that we should not do at every level of government. The second is, okay, we should do this. How can we do it more efficiently? Let's create a more efficient way of doing it. Yeah. It's not just sort of like, huzzah, destroy it all. Like, okay, should we be doing it? And if we should be doing it, how do we do it more efficiently?
Yeah. So
and yes, Mitch Daniels absolutely would have been wonderful.
Would have been done much better. But we are where we are. And so I saw you on one of the Sunday shows over the weekend, and you seem to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they will land in a place where they are going to actually care about efficiency. And I guess maybe that was one area where we part ways. Well, a rare area where we part ways. Because I don't think that they have any intention to do anything.
Again, let's give them the space to see if they hoist themselves on their own petard here, right? Like with trade. As I said, if somehow this leads to lower tariffs and more free trade, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Do you think that's going to happen?
I'm an eternal optimist.
You are an optimist. What about when it comes to the Doge? And there's got to be, do you have any hope? You still have even a hint of hope that this could end positively?
Well, I don't have much visibility into what's going on, right? I mean, does anybody?
You're the governor of the state. Have you gotten a call?
It's federal, not.
Yeah, but there are people in your state that are losing their job.
They're going to tear stuff down. And again, if there are things that we don't need to do, let's stop doing them. And then the question on if there's things that we agree we should do, how do we do it more efficiently? Doge doesn't seem to be answering that at this point. Yeah. It seems to just be, stopping the current way, fine, but then what replaces it actually turns out to be very important.
I see that you're hopeful and optimistic.
And there's another one. They're going to get rid of the penny. I'm all for that. Okay. If they get rid of the penny, that's great.
I'm with you on the penny.
Yep.
I'm
taxpayers $200 million a year, environmental costs, the mining of zinc and copper. So.
Yeah, poor people at the penny plant, though. It's tough.
We'll still make pennies for collectors. Some of those are in Denver, by the way. We have the Denver Mint, but we still will make nickels and dimes and quarters. So.
I had to go there as a kid. It was a really boring field trip.
We can't use the force of government to preserve horse and buggy manufacturers once the car's invented.
That's a good point. I'm with you on that. So here's the thing, though. You're optimistic. You've heard some things that might sound nice that you could imagine you agree with. Have they actually done anything that materially would improve the welfare of a person in Colorado so far? I mean, it's only been a month.
They being?
The Fed, Trump and Elon. Has there been anything that they've done that you're like, okay, Coloradans are going to benefit from this
What have
thing.
they done so far? I mean, it's
Like
mostly
1,000 executive orders. They fired a lot of people. They renamed some things.
a lot of them were held up in court. I mean, I can't think of one right now.
Me neither.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
discouraging,
again,
though.
I'm hopeful, Tim, on zoning and reform and permitting reform. If they get rid of the penny, but no, it's all if they do this, if they do this, if they do this. But no, I mean, nothing makes Colorado more prosperous that they've done yet,
right.
or America more prosperous, in my opinion. In fact, to the contrary, the threat of the tariffs obviously is a major drag on our economy.
Yeah. Well, that's not good. If the only thing
Those are not just those are
penny.
not all threats at this point. Aren't some of them with China? They're actually in force, right?
Yeah.
The Canada and Mexico ones, thank God, are still a threat. I hope that threat goes away. But some of those are actually already been implemented,
Yes.
so they're already causing harm.
That's a good reminder that the China one's been enforced. All right, they've renamed the Gulf though, so we have a new Gulf, the Gulf of Trump, and so I was wondering if we could spitball. You want to rename anything? Like, you only got 2 years left in Colorado. You've updated a few things. I'm from Littleton. That's kind of like a beta name, Littleton. I was thinking maybe we could rename that after like maybe me or Nikola Jokic
I like that.
or
We
you.
should name it after somebody like that.
Millerton, Jokic-ton. Is there any other naming?
Jokic would be fun. I think
Renaming?
Coloradans would go for that. I think that'd be awesome.
Did you have any other renaming ideas?
Well, I tweeted on this, but when I'll try to name the Gulf of Mexico, I said we could do a compromise. We have a place well in Colorado, Casa Bonita. I said we should call it the Gulf of Casa Bonita because it's a little bit American, a little bit Mexican. It's good for business.
You could sell me on that. We could maybe sell the naming rights. Also,
you could auction them off. That's what Doge should be doing.
Auctioning off the naming rights.
Close the national deficit.
Okay. Well, I'm interested.
Hey,
in that.
you hit on something. Why not? Not that, but let's auction off some other naming rights. Maybe we should do that in Colorado too. Auction off the naming rights for one of our towns or something.
I'm up for it. Maybe in Lauren Boebert's district. If we're going to have to pick a place to auction off, I would probably start there. You mentioned the debt and the deficit. This is another thing I think that is like important, and I think you would be a good messenger on this because some other Democrats don't care about this. But like, they don't have any plans actually to cut the debt or deficit.
No, and we all look what the president said during the campaign. The deficit would go up substantially, and all this talk of Doge. And again, I hope they succeed, but this is like this much. I mean, whether it's USAID and these other things, it's not.
We've got $5 trillion in tax cuts.
It's not in any material way, closing the deficit. So, I support in Colorado. We balance our budget every year. I think we need a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and not because it's good policy, but because it's better than the alternative of not having one, as we've learned. So, I think we should have it.
I asked several people what I should ask you, and everybody demanded that I ask you about RFK. So here we are. You had some nice things to say about RFK. He's just an okay. He's okay for me. He's bad to quite bad, I would say. But
that's pretty
like
good for the new administration, isn't it?
I guess.
The bad to quite bad is like top of the.
What are you seeing? What was it about RFK that gave you a little interest, that piqued your interest?
Well, I think he's interested in. Well, he is interested in health and prevention and reducing chronic disease, and that excites me. Colorado's a healthy state. We have one of the lowest obesity rates. Healthy diet. We get one of the longest lifespans. So I'm excited to work with him. Saw him yesterday and talked to him, and I think there's a lot of ways we can work together. And to be clear, and it's a shame I have to say this every time, but of course I don't believe in the nutty anti-science stuff. I'm pro-vaccine. I'm for all that. And he said that he won't get in the way of that, so hopefully that'll be the case.
You take him at his word at that?
We
come back to our fundamental disagreements.
Eternal optimist.
Your eternal optimism. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not feeling that good about that. What about the other thing about making America healthy again that gets me a little crossways, I think, with RFK, which is I don't know how cutting all research to any infectious diseases in the future is a very good idea. I think that's kind of a bad idea as far as on the health ledger.
We need more research, absolutely. Yeah.
But what do you like? Do you feel like he's serious about that though? I mean, we're already seeing real ramifications to like programs getting cut, right?
Look, I mean, you look at the life-saving research that's been done in our generation, the previous generation. We all live healthier, longer lives, and we need more research.
Okay, I'm just doing my best to just poke your optimism here. I'm trying to do it. You're like an optimism balloon, and I'm just going to keep pinning until I find a spot where we can let the air out. What are you the most worried
we
about?
voted for this guy. I mean, we're just saying, obviously. We hope best wishes for the country here. I mean, he's got to get something right out of the 20 or 30 things he's.
Do you think? Are we sure?
I hope
broken
so.
Clocks. What worries you? I mean, we've mentioned the tariffs. What else worries you the most? Like if he called you tomorrow, he's like, we had a great dinner. You seem like the only Democrat that is normal. And he gives you a buzz, and he's like, Jared, what do you think I should not do? What would you stop him from doing besides the tariffs? We mentioned the tariffs.
I'm obviously very concerned about abandoning our European allies and the fight for freedom and democracy. Again, don't know where that's headed, but very concerning remarks about the conflict. We cannot embolden Putin on the world stage, and I'm worried about that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Dems for a minute and just going forward. I'm wondering how you think the Democrats can try to recapture the mantle of appealing to working people, to people that don't really like the status quo, to the types of people that RFK appealed to. Let's just be honest. Like, what are some ways that you think the party can kind of not have to, sort of be the establishment, right? Like, how can the party embrace being reform?
Well, first of all, I think these principles that you have are a very good underpinning. Again, there's too many of them, but they're promising. And really talking about prosperity, abundance, economy. I mean, we are deeply concerned that this president's economic agenda could lead to less prosperity rather than more if he does what he's saying he's going to do. And I think we need to offer the alternative. And the Democrats have not always been, pure on these issues. They've been pro-trade. President Obama and President Clinton, led us into many more trade agreements, brought down tariffs, brought down non-tariff barriers to trade. We've, large, significant pro-growth tax policies. But, these are things that we should lean into because it makes a difference for people.
The Democrats did quite poorly in most blue states, like not swing states this past year, lost a lot of ground in the Northeast and the West. Two places where the Democrats lost a little ground, but not too much, was Utah and Colorado. I'm curious, is it just luck and the fact that there are a lot of Mormons there, you think? Or was there something that, Mormons, hell yeah. Or is there something that you did that you think might be worth looking at if you're a governor of an East Coast state?
I mean, just trying to meet the needs of Colorado. So we've been focused on, we talked about reducing taxes, removing barriers to housing. We also eliminated sales tax on a number of products. We implemented free universal preschool, which I'm very big priority for us, preparing all kids for success. And it prepares kids for success. The long-term longitudinal studies show that, and I love your data point that data is important. It also saves families, $6,000 a year in the here and now. 4-year-olds, preschool's very expensive. So really just trying to meet the needs of folks where they're at and grow our economy and prosperity.
So do you not see that happening in the coastal states? Like, what are you doing that they're not doing in California and New York? I mean, the Democrats lost 10 points in New York, like a ton. It was not just on the margins, right? It was not just conservative.
I'm not an expert in coastal politics, so I can't.
You got a sense.
I can't say all the factors. I could talk more about what we did do, right? Yeah. So, we also, in addition to cutting income tax, we cut property taxes too, and we capped any future property tax increases at 5%. So, really just trying to address people's costs and concerns. We've had a thriving economy in Colorado, and that's kind of, in fact, what led to the run-up in housing prices, right, along with the artificial constraints on supply that we're trying to systemically disassemble and allow more housing to be built.
Yeah. Do you look back at COVID and feel like that, there's like a lengthy backlash to kind of how that was managed at all? How do you reflect back on COVID? Because we first met actually because I watched your press conference during COVID, and it was around mask mandates, and you said you had some reporters were giving you trouble, and you were like, I sat and read the studies, and I decided that we didn't need to, we should.
You want to wear a mask? Wear a mask. Please, I encourage you. Right? We encourage, but we said the mandates didn't make sense. And we did. We just looked at all the data and the studies, and people are perfectly able to be agents in determining their appropriate risk levels for themselves. And I was glad that, my parents, who are now 80, did stay home a lot, and when they went out, wore masks, and that was very important.
Do you worry about that with regards to RFK? If we have a bird flu outbreak, and kind of how we are prepared to manage another pandemic? I just worry we don't have a lot of Jared Polis reading the studies in charge. I
don't honestly remember what he was saying during COVID. I don't remember if he was responsible or what he advocated during that. But no, again, I look more, as I said, on reducing chronic disease, improving health, diet and nutrition. There's huge upside for the American people if that's what he focuses on. And there'd be downside if he were to focus on making vaccines harder to get or reducing our vaccination rate.
All right, final one. Next year, we don't want you to be alone as the Democratic elected here at Principles First. So could you nominate a few other Democrats you would like us to, Heath, to recruit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to grab a few. We'll strategize
We're
about
strategize,
that.
Nobody comes straight to mind?
I'm just worried that they're going to fall asleep before they make it through all 16 of your principles.
Okay. What about Wes Moore, maybe? He's just right across the thing.
Wes is terrific.
Anybody else? Abigail Spanberger, maybe?
That would be great to get her, absolutely. So we'll strategize. I think we absolutely, this is not partisan. We should have a lot of great folks, and whether they are D's or U's or R's, they ought to be part of this, because this is just on the heels of another little conference called CPAC. You may have heard of it. And I said we want to be you want to be bigger than CPAC, so you got to grow next year. That's the goal. You got to be bigger than CPAC.
Look at that. That's my man. It's Governor Jared Polis, everybody. If only we had 50 like him, we'd be in better shape. We'll see y'all.